Hierarchies are everywhere. If you live with your parents, chances are that they sit at the top of the hierarchy, holding authority over you, while you're at the bottom, following rules with less autonomy. If you have younger siblings, your position shifts. You gain a bit more power in the structure, which you probably abuse vehemently, and as you grow up, you gain more and more autonomy, or so you think. The same applies to school, work, and many other aspects of life. But why is that the case? Why do hierarchies even exist? The basic explanation would be that hierarchies exist to serve the purpose of introducing order into a system that otherwise would be extremely disorienting. But why do we follow this structure? What do we have to gain from it? Well, it can often act as a means of safety. Establishing a clear chain of command means that the right people can respond when things go wrong. It's also a way of rewarding those who work the hardest, providing them with recognition, giving them authority, or providing them with privileges. Hierarchies can even suggest that the person at the top is more knowledgeable, experienced, or overall wiser than others below them, creating a sense of trust. In short, hierarchies help maintain order even when they aren't usually fair or balanced. Minecraft is no different. At first glance, the player seems to be at the top, with every other entity being subordinate, but that's not always the case. The clearest example of hierarchy in Minecraft is found on multiplayer servers that have rank systems. Players who pay for ranks distinguish themselves from those who don't, or from those who paid less. While ranks might not directly impact gameplay in most servers, they create a social hierarchy where having no rank can sometimes come with certain stereotypes associated with it. Ranks are often seen as a status symbol where some ranked players are constantly glazed, while non-ranked ones might often be shrugged off, being seen as noobs. While people with ranks might feel themselves as at the top of the hierarchy, there always appears to be a bigger fish. Hierarchy isn't just about paid ranks. Admins and mods hold authority over regular players, reinforcing a power structure. But hierarchy in Minecraft isn't just limited to servers where ranks are a thing. Even the game's mobs and various mechanics show signs of a structured order, and sometimes the player isn't as high up as you'd like to think. If we take a look at all the various Minecraft mobs, we start to find semblances of this very structure sprinkled in the game. Mobs in Minecraft don't fall into a flat power structure. In fact, many of them follow clear hierarchies, with some mobs at the top and other relegated to lower ranks. If we take a look at villagers, we find one of the most structured examples of hierarchy in the game. Villagers are probably the closest thing representative of a human society in Minecraft, other than the player itself, if we decide to disregard their abnormally large noses. So given how human societies are known for their hierarchical structures, it makes sense to look into villagers for similar behavior. Villagers follow a form of social construct based on their professions. From farmers to librarians, each role comes with a specific value to the community. The professions are an indicator of social status because not every profession is equally valued in society. While librarians and farmers are widely regarded to be the most important villager professions due to their valuable contribution to society, other villager professions such as the leather worker or the butcher are widely regarded to be the most useless professions. Lightly put, they're trash. But it doesn't stop at profession alone. Villagers can also be promoted based on experience, advancing from novice to master within their respective professions. Higher level villagers, particularly in desirable professions, gain better traits and even receive health benefits for free. I know the average American cannot possibly comprehend the concept of free healthcare, therefore villagers have it significantly better than the average American. This creates a hierarchy where not all villagers have the same opportunities for growth. A librarian or farmer is far more likely to reach master status than a peasant leather worker, simply because their traits are in higher demand. And this social inequality becomes especially evident when villagers are turned into zombies. Villagers in more desirable positions are way more prone to curing than their less desirable counterparts. Even in a simple game mechanic like curing zombies, the hierarchy dictates who is worth saving and who is not. This creates a clear hierarchy between the classes of villagers, with the iron golem at the bottom of the structure. Though physically strong, the iron golem is created solely to serve the villagers, acting as their protector rather than an equal member of their community, akin to the 1800s. It does not trade, does not advance, and does not have any personal freedoms. Instead, it is either summoned into existence by the villagers or players, and expected to sacrifice itself for their safety, making it more of a tool than a participant in social order. This is an indicator that physical strength itself isn't necessarily a condition that influences your rank in the hierarchy. But the problem doesn't seem to lie with the villagers themselves as much as it does with the resources they have at their disposal. Most villagers, with the exception of the nitwit who is a pathetic free rider, are fully capable of taking on different professions, at least at the novice level. While this usually requires human intervention to assign them to a workstation, it highlights that their hierarchy isn't necessarily based on intelligence or inherent ability. Instead, it's dictated by access to wealth and resources. Villagers in desirable professions only hold their higher status because they have access to the right tools, not because they're inherently superior. All a peasant villager needs is a single book, after which his third eye opens up and he becomes a literal genius, publishing works of art such as Fiery Aspect, the third rendition of Fortune, or if particularly gifted, The Man That Dinged, true works of arts. And in that sense, this hierarchy isn't so different from our own world. People born into wealthy nations or privileged families inherently have more opportunities to succeed, while those born in poorer countries or disadvantaged conditions often struggle to climb the social and economic ladder. While villagers have an intricate social and economic structure, they are not the only ones bound by a hierarchical system. Illagers that are estranged villagers who formed violent gangs also have a clear internal ranking, though their structure isn't as immediately obvious as that of their tan-colored counterparts. Instead of professions and experience levels, their hierarchy is determined by their roles in raids, outposts, and patrols. The most basic Illager unit is the Pillager, which makes sense considering they are the ones stationed at outposts. The very existence of Pillager outposts suggests a surveillance system, likely monitoring nearby villages, gathering intelligence, and perhaps relaying it to the higher ranks within woodland mansions. Where have I seen this one before? Given that these outposts house only pillagers, it's reasonable to assume that pillagers are at the bottom of the chain of command. Their role as a frontline soldier reinforces this idea. They make up the majority of patrols, lead the early waves of raids, and are often the first to die in battle. Only when their attacks fail do higher-ranking Illagers step in, meaning the pillagers are essentially worthless foot soldiers. Vindicators, on the other hand, seem to hold a slightly higher position. Vindicators wield axes and only appear in later raid waves, implying that they are considered slightly more valuable assets, and are deployed when reinforcements are needed. Witches also join raids, but they don't seem to directly be part of the hierarchy. Instead, they appear to be mercenaries, serving a support role rather than following the same command structure as the other Illagers. At the top of the visible chain of command is the Evoker. They only appear in the final waves of the raid, which alone suggests that they are among the most powerful of the Illagers. More importantly, they are the only ones with the ability to summon Vexes, which appear to serve them exclusively. The connection between Vexes and allies raises the possibility that Vexes are actually corrupted allies, forcibly converted into servants of the Evokers. This further highlights the Evoker's authority, as they are the only ones capable of controlling this particular entity. But the chain of command doesn't stop there. Some Illagers wear those goofy banners on their heads during raids, patrols, and around outposts, marking them as captains. These captains seem to have leadership roles within their local unit, and their death have direct consequences. When a player kills one, it triggers a raid upon entering a village, suggesting that their elimination is enough to signal an emergency response from the CCP headquarters about the imminent threat of a violent uprising. This reinforces the idea that pillagers aren't entirely static in their position. Some can be promoted to captains or even specialize in certain roles, such as Ravager Riders. Instead of a strictly linear hierarchy, Illagers seem to have a more dynamic system, where advancement can take different forms, with some rising through the combat ranks while others take on leadership roles. However, this raises a contradiction. If Evokers are at the top of the command structure, why do they participate in raids at all? In most hierarchical military structures, the highest ranking figures don't fight on the front lines. They oversee operations from a distance. So if Evokers aren't the true leaders of the Illagers, then who is? One possible answer lies in a mob that exists in the game but never spawns naturally, the Illusioner. Originally intended as part of the Illager faction, the Illusioner possesses abilities that set it apart from the rest. It doesn't wield brute strength like the Vindicator or summon creatures like the Evoker, but instead relies on deception and magic, capable of creating duplicates of itself and turning invisible. If it was meant to be the true leader of the Illagers, it would make sense for it to remain hidden, orchestrating raids and attacks from behind the scenes, while letting the Evokers take the visible role of high command. Whether the Illusioner was scrapped or simply left undiscovered within the world of Minecraft, its absence leaves a gap in the Illager hierarchy, one that suggests there may be an unseen force guiding them from the shadows. If the Illager represents an organized militaristic hierarchy built on raids and conquest, the Piglins embody a completely different kind of power structure, one driven by wealth, trade, and brute strength. Unlike the Illagers, whose hierarchy revolves around combat roles and leadership ranks, Piglins follow a hybrid system. At first glance, Piglins don't appear to have a strict chain of command. They function as a society rather than an army, with each member seemingly acting in their own self-interest. Yet despite their chaotic nature, there is a clear distinction between regular Piglins and Piglin brutes. Regular piglins are traders and scavengers, willing to engage in barter as long as gold is involved. Their entire social order seems to be centered around gold, with their aggression toward non-gold-wearing players suggesting that wealth dictates respect in their world. Those who possess gold, whether piglins or outsiders, are treated with a degree of civility, while those without it are seen as enemies. But piglin broods do not share this behavior. Unlike regular piglins, they have no interest in trading, nor do they care if a player wears gold. Their only function is to guard bastions. This suggests that piglin broods are not just stronger piglins, but an entirely separate class within piglin society. While regular piglins are opportunistic, broods enforce the safety of bastions. If piglins operate as a society of merchants and scavengers, then piglin broods are the ruling class's private guards, ensuring that their hoarded wealth remains untouched. This divide implies that piglin society, unlike the Illagers, isn't structured around leadership and military ranks, but rather around access to resources and the power to protect them. Regular piglins may chase after gold and trade for better loot, but it's the broods who have the true authority, standing as the final barrier between outsiders and the vast fortunes hidden within their bastion. In that sense, Piglin Hierarchy isn't just about who fights and who doesn't. It's about who controls the gold, who protects it, and who is left scrambling for whatever scraps remain. If the piglins are a society built around wealth and the Illagers operate as a militaristic order, then the Guardians and Elder Guardians represent a completely different kind of hierarchy, one based on preservation and defense. Unlike piglins or Illagers who have motivations that can be traced back to concepts like conquest or trade, Guardians don't seem to have any goal other than to protect something that isn't even theirs. They serve as the sole protector of the ocean monuments, but there's no indication that they built these structures. This raises the question, who or what are they truly guarding? The ocean monuments house large quantities of gold, much like the piglin bastions, but the Guardians themselves have no use for it. Unlike piglins who are actively drawn to wealth or Illagers who seek to pillage and conquer, Guardians seem to exist purely to keep others away. Their entire behavior revolves around one thing: defense. They attack any intruders on site using ranged attacks that make them even more difficult to approach, and unlike piglins or Illagers, they never leave their posts. Even when the treasure they protect is taken, they remain in place as if nothing has changed. Yet even among Guardians, there is a clear hierarchy. The Elder Guardians stand above the rest, larger, stronger, and capable of inflicting mining fatigue. If the Guardians are soldiers, then the Elder Guardians are the generals, placed in key positions to ensure that the monument remains secure. But much like their subordinates, Elder Guardians don't seem to hold any personal stake in what they guard. Their role is not one of leadership, but of higher authority and defense, making them less of a ruling class and more of an advanced security system. This lack of clear leadership suggests that Guardian society, if it can even be called that, doesn't function like the structured ranks of Illagers or the wealth-driven power of piglins. Instead, it operates more like an automated defense system, an ancient system that exists solely to protect a treasure that has long lost its original owners. If anything, the Guardians and Elder Guardians aren't rulers or soldiers in the traditional sense. They are relics of a forgotten past. But here's the thing: while some mobs have clear hierarchies like the Villagers, Illagers, Piglins, or Guardians, there are a few that don't exactly fit the mold. They don't have obvious ranks, but they still play by their own rules, and honestly that might as well make them even more interesting to explore. The Wither is a unique case because it doesn't have a natural place in the world. It must be summoned, yet Wither skeletons are already present in nether fortresses. This raises the question: are Wither skeletons simply remnants of a past hierarchy, waiting for a Wither to lead them again? Or is the Wither itself just a mindless force of nature, lacking the leadership qualities of something like an Elder Guardian or an Evoker? If the player creates the Wither, does that make them its ruler, or are they merely unleashing something beyond their control? Endermen are among the most puzzling creatures in Minecraft, but they do seem to follow a loose hierarchical structure. They wander freely in the overworld, nether, and the end, but in the end they appear to assemble around the Ender Dragon, almost as if they recognize its authority. They don't directly serve it in the same way Illagers and Piglins seem to do, but they don't attack the Ender Dragon at least as long as they're not bothered, and their behavior suggests a connection. Is the Ender Dragon their ruler, or is it simply another force in their world that they acknowledge but don't interfere with, almost as if they learn to live with it? If anything, the player might be the one disrupting whatever hierarchy already exists in the end. The Warden presents a different kind of hierarchy, one based not on leadership or social order, but on sheer dominance. It doesn't answer to anyone except the Skull. Its only objective is defending the deep dark. The Warden operates as an enforcer with no clear master. If it has no leader, why does it exist at all? Well, while it doesn't seem to follow any one entity, it does answer to the calls of the Skulk. The Warden only appears when the Skulk detects a threat nearby, suggesting that its role might be to serve the interest of the Skulk itself. So, Could the Warden be part of a lost civilization's defense system, much akin to that of the Ocean Monument? Or is it something even more ancient, standing as the last protector of a forgotten order that was once bound to the will of the Skulk? As for us, the player, we've got the ability to mess with all of this. We can take down these mobs, disrupt their systems, or even be part of them, whether it's in the chaos of the Wither's destruction or the chilling dominance of the Warden. So are we at the top of the hierarchy, or are we just another force causing things to fall apart? Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to subscribe not to miss out on future stuff. See ya!